The rain came soft and steady that October evening, the kind that makes you feel like the whole world is holding its breath. I was at the kitchen counter cracking eggs into a pan while white rice steamed beside me. My hands moved through the motions I'd done 1,000 times before. Muscle memory. Ritual. The same meal my daughter Emma and I had shared 3 times a week for the last 5 years. She was sitting at the table, swinging her legs slightly, waiting for the eggs. 6 years old. Bright-eyed. The kind of kid who noticed everything. She'd been waiting to tell me about her day until we were both sitting down. That was our thing. Before the first bite, she described the best part of her day. And I would listen. Really listen. Not with half my attention while thinking about bills or the things I'd lost or all the ways I'd failed, but with the kind of full presence that children recognize immediately and respond to with trust. She was just starting to tell me about learning to spell the word astronaut when the knock came. 3 clean strikes against the front door. I set down my fork. I wasn't expecting anyone. People didn't just show up at my house on Thursday nights. They called when they had a pipe that needed fixing or a hinge that needed replacing. They didn't appear on my porch when I was in the middle of dinner with my daughter. I told Emma to keep eating, and I walked to the door. When I opened it, I went still. Standing there in the rain was a woman I'd seen before. I'd seen her dozens of times, actually, driving past in her gray sedan, walking through the neighborhood with that measured pace that suggested she had somewhere important to be and no time for deviations. Her name was Olivia Chen. She lived across the street in the mansion behind the iron gates. Number 14. The kind of house that looked more like an asset than a home. She was 28 years old and she'd been profiled in business magazines I'd never read. CEO of Chen Capital Partners. She'd inherited the company at 23, restructured it, then spent 3 years buying broken companies, fixing them and selling them for massive profit. Sharp. Self-contained. Cold people said. The neighbors called her the woman behind the iron gates who drove a gray sedan and never waved. Now she was standing on my porch, looking uncertain. She was holding a thin folder, the kind you held when you were delivering information that couldn't wait. Her professional composure was cracking at the edges. This was not the woman who drove away at measured speeds. This was someone who had made a decision that terrified her. "Come in," I said, before I even thought about it. "Zoe's at dinner. You can come in." She hesitated, like she was trying to calculate whether this was wise. Then she crossed the threshold, water dripping from her jacket onto my worn kitchen floor. Everything that happened after that came from that single moment, from the choice to let her in, from the decision to not pretend the divide between us had to stay in place. Olivia sat at the small kitchen table while Emma continued eating her eggs and rice. The girl regarded the woman across the street with the unself-conscious curiosity only children have. "Who are you?" Emma asked. Olivia seemed not to know how to answer. I watched her struggle with it. She lived 200 yards away. We'd seen each other dozens of times. And yet she had no idea how to introduce herself. "I live across the street," Olivia said finally. Number 14. Your father and I have been neighbors for 3 years. Emma considered this with serious concentration. "Do you ever fix broken things?" she asked. "Like my dad does." "Sometimes," Olivia said. "I fix broken companies. I buy companies that are falling apart. I figure out what's wrong with them, and then I fix them." Emma thought about this gravely. "Do they say thank you?" Olivia looked away. Not usually. That's not how business works. Emma returned to her eggs. Well, everybody says thank you to my dad, so maybe your job isn't as good. There was a moment where Olivia's expression shifted into something that looked almost like it might have been a laugh. She looked at me. I shrugged. There's no arguing with her logic, I said. Olivia opened the folder. I could see the edges of her professional composure cracking. The edges of whatever had brought her to this house on a Thursday night in the rain. Inside the folder were documents, engineering reports, maintenance logs, communication records from 5 years ago, from Hion Industrial Solutions, from the week my life had been dismantled. I fix broken companies, she said quietly. They're usually targets for restructuring. And I found something. Your case. What happened to you? She looked directly at me. It wasn't your fault. The documentation proves it, and I don't think you've ever fought to make that clear. I felt something tighten in my chest, a feeling I hadn't let myself have in 5 years. I had spent all that time accepting the unfairness of it as the price of moving forward. I had chosen not to fight, not because I didn't believe I was right, but because fighting meant staying stuck in the past. It meant opening wounds I had already decided to live with. What's the point? I said quietly. It was 5 years ago. I have a life now. The point is that you're teaching your daughter to accept injustice as normal, Olivia said. And I don't think you mean to do that. It was the kind of thing you could only say to someone if you had been watching, if you had been paying attention, if you cared enough to understand what was really at stake. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw something I had missed before. She wasn't here because she was a fixer by nature. She was here because she had noticed me, and Emma, and the life we had built in the gap between accepted and possible. After Emma went to bed that night, after I had tucked her in and read her a story about penguins, I sat at the kitchen table with Olivia, and she told me the whole story. 5 years earlier, I had been a mechanical systems engineer at Hion Industrial Solutions, a mid-tier manufacturing firm that made automated components for larger industrial chains. I was genuinely good at the job, not just following schematics but understanding them, knowing where the weaknesses lived before they became failures, where the risks hid in the elegant designs. Then came the Meridian incident, a system failure that cost the company $4 million in equipment loss and regulatory fines. I had flagged the vulnerability 3 weeks before the collapse. I had sent 2 written memos. I had spoken directly to my floor supervisor. The warnings went nowhere. When the failure arrived, someone had to carry it, and I was the name on the maintenance sign-off log. I was let go on a Tuesday without a formal hearing, without severance beyond the legal minimum. My wife had already left by then, exhausted by a distance neither of us knew how to close. By the time Emma turned 2, the custody arrangement had settled into something workable. I had her full-time. Her mother called on weekends when she remembered. I'd moved into the house on Clement Street, a rented 2-bedroom with a cracked driveway and a boiler that needed coaxing every winter. I had built a life around what remained. Emma, and the work of keeping her fed warm and certain that she was loved. I became the fix-it man. Leaking pipes, broken door frames, malfunctioning appliances, the occasional wiring job for neighbors who didn't want to pay the licensed rate. I was thorough and reliable and cheap. Some neighbors called me the fix-it man with a fondness that masked quiet condescension underneath. He's useful, they said, necessary, easy to forget. But Emma didn't see me that way. To her, I was the smartest person alive. She said so with the absolute conviction only a 6-year-old can produce. The neighborhood had a strange geography. On my side, peeling paint, chain-link fencing, garbage cans left at the curb a day too long. On Olivia's side, stone mansions, manicured hedges, security cameras. The divide was not violent. It was just present, embedded in small moments. I'd noticed her once early in the spring. She was driving past when Emma was playing in the driveway with a rubber ball. Emma stopped and waved, the full arm greeting of a child with no reason to doubt kindness. Olivia didn't look up. She didn't see her. Or she saw her and couldn't afford to acknowledge her. Now, 5 years later, Olivia sat in my kitchen and told me that she had dug into the High-On files, that she had found the memos, the 2 documented warnings I'd filed before the system failed, the emails between management where they acknowledged my concerns, and then decided to proceed anyway. The choice to prioritize efficiency over safety. The choice made without my knowledge that would lead to my destruction. They were never supposed to fire you, she said. They were supposed to own the decision they made. But it's easier to blame the engineer, to make one person carry the weight of a corporate choice. I listened to this. It was strange to hear 5 years of isolation and acceptance reframed as injustice, as something that didn't have to be permanent, as something that could still be addressed. "Why does this matter to you?" I asked her. Olivia was quiet for a long time. "Because I spend my whole life fixing things," she said finally. "Buying broken companies, making them work, selling them for profit, and I'm very good at it. But I've never actually made anything right. I've never fixed something and left it fixed. I've never done anything that mattered except to myself." She looked around the small kitchen, at the drawing Emma had made taped to the refrigerator, at the simple dinner plates in the rack, at the life I had built with almost nothing. "I think it matters that this is fixed," Olivia said. "I think it matters for you, and I think it might matter for me too." I agreed. Over the next few days, Olivia's legal team moved quickly. But before the real fight started, something happened at Emma's school that changed everything. It was March when Emma came home quieter than usual. Her backpack dragged from one shoulder. I was repairing a cabinet hinge when she finally spoke. Marcus said something she began, then stopped. She was at the age where she was beginning to understand that words could carry shame. "He said my dad just fixes broken stuff," she said finally. I set down my screwdriver. I felt the weight of that sentence, the way it had been delivered, not unkindly, but as a fact, as a diminishment. I pulled up a chair and sat down across from her. We were eye level. "Is that what he said?" "He said it like it was bad," Emma said. Her voice was very small, like fixing things wasn't a real job. I thought for a moment about what to say. Because this mattered. Because my answer would stick with her. Because the way I responded would teach her something about how to live in a world that doesn't always see your worth. "Marcus is right about one thing," I said. "Your dad fixes broken stuff. And he's right that some people think that's not important work. But they're wrong about what matters." I stood up and walked to the living room. I came back with the drawing Emma had made when she was 4. It showed me fixing the radiator, my face simple and kind. "There are 2 kinds of value in the world," I continued. "There's the kind that impresses people, and there's the kind that actually helps them. When I fixed the radiator, your mother could stay warm. When I fixed the Hendersons' door lock, they felt safe. When I fix things, I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm trying to make sure the people I care about are okay." "Is that a real job?" Emma asked. Her voice was uncertain. "A real job is work that matters," I said. "And this work matters. To you, to our neighbors, to me. Do you know why I keep this drawing? Because you saw me doing something I believed in, and you thought it was worth remembering." Emma was quiet. Then she asked something that cut straight to what actually mattered. "Are you sad about the job you used to have?" "Yeah," I said. "Sometimes I'm sad about it, but I'm not sad about choosing you. I'm not sad about being here. That's the part I got right." But that night, after Emma was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with the weight of the question still there. I pulled out my notebook, the one I kept hidden in a drawer under the sink. It was filled with technical sketches, system designs, ideas that had been accumulating for 5 years. Unbidden, unstoppable. Proof that I hadn't stopped being an engineer. I had just stopped allowing that part of myself to exist in the world. And I asked myself something I hadn't let myself ask in a long time. If I accept the margins as my proper place, what am I teaching Emma about her own proper place? When Olivia's legal team started building the case, I had to answer that question. And the answer was no. I wasn't going to teach my daughter that accepting injustice was strength. I wasn't going to show her how to disappear quietly. In the week before the deposition, I reorganized my life around the task. Emma stayed with Mrs. Callahan after school. I spent my evenings at the kitchen table with my old documents, 5-year-old memos and maintenance logs, email chains I'd kept despite everything. I read through them, documenting the timeline, who knew what, when, what was said, and what was ignored. One evening Emma came home and found me surrounded by papers. "What's all this?" she asked. "Just something I need to figure out," I said. "The soup thing, where you have to explain about the factory." I nodded. "Are you scared?" I considered lying, but I didn't. "A little," I said. "Will the people believe you?" "I don't know. That's up to them." Emma thought about this with her characteristic seriousness. "You should tell them what you always tell me, that if you know why something is broken, you can explain how to fix it." I looked at my 6-year-old daughter and felt something shift deep in my chest. She had taken my own philosophy about broken systems and reflected it back to me. She had shown me that I already knew how to do this, that I had been preparing my whole life to tell the truth about broken things. The night before the deposition, I read through my materials one final time. I didn't try to memorize. I just wanted to be steady, to be clear, to be the person my daughter believed I was. At 9 o'clock, Olivia called. "Tomorrow," she said, "you're just going to tell the truth. Don't perform it. Don't editorialize it. Just the facts and the sequence." "Okay. Okay," I said. "You're going to be fine," she said. I didn't know if that was true, but the fact that she believed it mattered more than I expected. When I hung up the phone, I looked at the notebook on the table, the one with all my abandoned ideas, and I made a decision. If the deposition went well, if I was vindicated, if the record was set straight, then maybe it was time to write down what I had been thinking about for 5 years. Maybe it was time to let that part of myself exist in the world again. The deposition room was smaller than I expected. A long table, a stenographer, 3 lawyers, Hyon's counsel, the regulatory investigator, and the third chair for Holt, the manager who had dismissed my memos as noise 5 years ago. He sat with the composed professionalism of a man who had prepared for this possibility, but his face was pale. He knew why he was here. I was sworn in. I felt the weight of 5 years of silence settling on me, the pressure of testimony, the finality of speaking what had been unspoken. Before we begin, I said I want to walk through the Meridian failure sequence technically without interpretation. Just the facts, the systems record, the communication record, the sequence of events. Everything I say can be verified against existing documentation. Olivia nodded. Go ahead. I took a breath. The room was watching me. In Q3 2019, I was assigned to the Meridian Automated Component System as the lead engineer. The system design was solid. No fundamental flaws. I performed a full technical review and identified one vulnerability. The redundancy system relied on a power management algorithm designed for optimal efficiency, not resilience. Elegant engineering. But it had a weakness. If the primary system failed, suddenly the backup would fail within 200 milliseconds. I pulled up the diagram. This was not a failure in design. It was a trade-off. You could have redundancy, or you could have efficiency, not both. So the question became, which do you prioritize? In September, I was asked to review a proposed budget reduction, specifically to the system engineering allocation. They wanted to cut $300,000 from the maintenance protocols. I reviewed the reduction and determined that it would require eliminating the quarterly redundancy stress tests we were running. That's when I filed the first memo. I placed a document on the table. September 15, 2019. Subject Risk Assessment, Budget Reduction Impact. In it, I stated that eliminating the stress tests would make the system vulnerable to the failure mode I'd identified. The memo was received. Olivia confirmed. Acknowledged on September 17th. Then what the regulatory investigator asked. Then nothing I said quietly. No response. No discussion. So on October 2nd, I filed a second memo. More detailed. I included the failure scenarios, the potential costs, the timeline for degradation. I placed another document on the table. Again received and logged. Again no response. Holt's attorney stirred. These documents don't establish causation. The engineer was speculating. Let him finish, Olivia said. Her voice did not rise. It simply closed the space like a door being shut. On October 15th, I spoke directly to my floor supervisor, Thomas Reed. I explained the vulnerability. I asked him to escalate the concern to management. Did he? The investigator asked. I thought he did, I said. Reed said he would raise it, but I never heard back. I didn't want to go over his head. So I did my job. I signed off on the system as configured with the reduced maintenance protocols, and I documented why. And then Olivia prompted. And then on November 2nd, the Meridian system failed, I said. The backup algorithm failed within the expected millisecond range. The redundancy system never engaged. The equipment loss was $4.2 million. The regulatory fines were an additional $1.8 million. I let that sit. Within 2 days, an investigation was launched. And within 2 weeks, I received a notice of termination. The justification was maintenance oversight, specifically that I had failed to adequately prepare the system for the reduction in maintenance protocols. But you had warned them, the investigator said. Not as a question. I had warned them, I confirmed. Twice in writing, once verbally, and then I documented that I was signing off on a system I had flagged as vulnerable. All of that is in the record. Holt's face had gone very still. The color had drained from it. He was a man watching his own justifications collapse in real time. What I want to establish today, I said, speaking directly to the room, is that this was not a failure of maintenance. This was a failure of management to act on information they received. They were given clear warning. They chose efficiency over safety. And when the system failed in exactly the way I predicted, I was held responsible for that choice. That's an inference, Holt's attorney said sharply. The evidence. The evidence is in the emails, I said. Between Reed and Holt, dated October 16th through October 28th. They knew about my concerns. They discussed them. And they made a business decision to proceed anyway. Olivia placed a final document on the table. The email chain between management flagging the engineer's warning and confirming the decision to proceed with the budget reduction despite it. There was a long silence. I don't have anything more to add, I said. The record speaks for itself. When I stood to leave, Olivia caught my eye across the table. She nodded once, clear and complete. 2 days later, Holt resigned. Olivia's legal team referred the matter to the original regulatory body for review. I didn't attend any further proceedings. I had said what was true, and the record now contained it. That was enough. What I felt on the drive home was not triumph. It was something quieter and more durable. The particular lightness of a thing that has been carried alone for too long, finally being set down in the right place. That evening, Emma and I had dinner together. But it was different now. Something had shifted. Emma sat across from me, and we were both changed. She asked me how it went, and I told her the truth. I stood up and told them what happened. I showed them the things I had written down. I showed them the choices they made, and I told them that it wasn't my fault. Emma nodded, like she always knew that was true. I realized something in that moment. Emma never doubted me. She never accepted the narrative that I was the fix-it man, because that's all I was capable of. She always believed I was an engineer. She always believed I was the smartest person alive. She never accepted the diminishment that the world had tried to impose on me. I had been teaching her something after all. Not resignation, not acceptance of injustice. She had learned resilience. She had learned that you can keep going even when the world says you're not good enough. And now by fighting back, I was teaching her the second lesson. That resilience is not enough. That sometimes you have to fight. That sometimes you have to make the world acknowledge the truth about you. Later that night after Emma was asleep, Olivia called. She told me about the regulatory review, about the job offer, about the fact that my dismissal would likely be overturned. I told her thank you. I told her no. You don't want your career back, she said. I want my life back, I said. I think I'm getting that without a job offer. She was quiet for a moment. Is there something I can do that would actually be useful to you? I thought about it. The schools in this district are underfunded. Emma's classroom has 2 broken computers. I've been meaning to fix them, but the parts cost more than the school can spend. I can arrange that, Olivia said. Within 3 days, 2 refurbished units were delivered and installed. Emma came home from school with a drawing of a computer with legs running down a hallway. She presented it to me as a gift of public record. In the weeks following the deposition, something began to shift on Clement Street. Olivia, who had always been carefully separated from my world, began to appear in it. She would stand in her driveway without the usual efficiency of departure. Just stand there in the early evening, looking at nothing in particular, looking at my house, looking at Emma playing in the yard. She brought me a coffee one morning while I was working on the Hendersons' fence. Wordlessly. She left before I could thank her. She stopped driving past Emma without acknowledging her. At first it was just a pause, a momentary softening of the forward gaze. Then it became a nod. Not quite a wave, but a recognition. Emma noticed all of it. She began reporting Olivia's appearances with the meticulous frequency of a small scientist compiling field observations. She parked by the gate for a long time today. She smiled at me when I was getting the mail. She has a nice coat. I received these reports with the measured stillness of a man who was paying closer attention than he let on. I didn't seek Olivia out. I didn't manufacture reasons to cross the street. But I stopped pretending not to see her, and when she stood near enough to talk, I talked. She's not warm in the conventional sense. She's precise. She listens the way engineers listen. For structure. For the load-bearing pieces of what's being said. She understands what I mean before I finish saying it. I find I trust that. I have not trusted anyone like that in a long time. She invited herself to dinner one evening. It was awkward at first. She didn't know how to be in a home. But Emma was patient. Emma explained her world, her drawings, her dreams of becoming a systems engineer or a herpetologist or both. Olivia listened with complete focus, and something cracked open in her professional composure. By the end of the meal, she was laughing. A real laugh, not the controlled exhalation of someone pretending to enjoy themselves. After Emma was asleep, Olivia stayed. And we talked about nothing in particular. The neighborhood, the rain, what kind of coffee we each preferred. It was simple. It was everything. For the first time in 5 years, I was not alone with my daughter. I had someone else in my life, someone who saw me, someone who had made the choice to step outside her gates and into my world, and it mattered more than I expected. On an evening in the second week of November, I stood at the kitchen counter preparing the same meal as always. Eggs, rice, cucumber, apple juice for Emma, water for myself, the same geometry of comfort. The oil was just beginning to heat in the pan. White rice was steaming in the pot beside it. And I was thinking about what the next year might look like, whether I'd take on more substantial repair contracts, whether I'd finally let myself write down the system architecture ideas that had been accumulating in my notebooks for 5 years. Unbidden, unstoppable. The knock came at 7 o'clock. 3 clean strikes. Familiar now, but still unexpected. I turned off the burner. The eggs could wait. I crossed to the door. Olivia stood on the porch. She wasn't in her office clothes. She wore a plain dark jacket over a sweater. Her hair was down. She was holding a covered dish in both hands with the careful grip of someone who had not carried food very far and was determined not to drop it. There was something in her posture that I had never seen before. In all the months of watching her move through the world with her trained professional exactness, she looked uncertain. She looked uncertain. And she had come anyway. "I made soup," she said. She paused. It took me 3 attempts. I looked at the covered dish. Then I looked at her. I understood what this moment meant. Olivia, who had spent her whole life acquiring and fixing and moving on, had made something with her hands. Had made something that wasn't about business or profit or acquisition. Had made it because she wanted to be part of something simple. Part of something real. I realized, she continued, that I don't know how to do this. Simple things, cooking a meal, sitting at a table without an agenda. She shifted the dish slightly in her hands. I'd like to learn. I thought you might be willing to show me. From the hallway behind me came the sound of small feet on hardwood. Emma appeared in her pajamas, blinking in the hall light, a book tucked under one arm. She'd been listening. She'd been waiting to see if Olivia would come back. Emma looked at Olivia and at the covered dish and made her assessment with 6-year-old speed. "Is that soup?" she asked. "It is," Olivia said. "Does it need to be fixed?" A sound escaped Olivia that was brief and surprised. It was the first genuinely unguarded thing I had ever heard from her. It was almost a laugh, the sound of a person learning to be human. Probably a little, she admitted. "Dad can fix it," Emma said simply, and then she turned back toward the kitchen. "Come in. We're having dinner." I held the door open wider. Olivia stepped inside out of the November cold carrying her soup and her uncertainty and the particular quiet bravery of a person who is learning for the first time that simple things are not small things. That vulnerability is not weakness. That the most important work is not the work that impresses people, but the work that teaches them they are not alone. We moved to the kitchen. Emma climbed back into her chair. I began to heat Olivia's soup, and when it was warm we sat together at a simple table and shared a simple meal. The sound of bowls clinking, the low voice of a father, the laugh of a child, the careful, tentative presence of someone new learning to belong. Outside, the November cold pressed against the windows. Inside, a man and a woman and a child ate soup together. As we ate, something became clear. The city doesn't know the difference between a man who has been vindicated and a man who has learned to be whole. But we do. I know it as I watch Emma explain to Olivia why green shoes are the right choice for becoming a herpetologist. I know it as I see Olivia lean forward with genuine interest, her professional mask finally gone, her carefully built life beginning to crack open to let something real come through. Olivia knows it too. She spent 28 years building something that could be bought and sold and restructured. And in one evening, sitting at a kitchen table with a man and a child, she's learned what it means to build something that just exists. That doesn't have to impress anyone. That just has to matter. Emma knows it. She knows that her belief in me was justified, not just because I was vindicated by a legal system, but because I chose my life. I chose her. I refused to be anything other than exactly who I was. And that was enough. The soup is real. The meal is real. The connection between the three of us is real. And it matters more than any acquisition or vindication or career trajectory ever could. I understand something as I look across the table at the two people who matter most to me now. The best part of my life is not behind me. It's just beginning. And all it took was the decision to stop accepting what the world had told me I deserved. All it took was one knock on the door. One woman willing to step outside the gates. One small girl who believed in me completely. And one moment when I chose to let them in. The city doesn't know the difference. But the hum, if you know how to listen, always tells the truth.